And then I met Cash Money. You
Oof.
know, before I came along, Cash Money had put out 31 CDs over a 6-year period.
Talk about consistency.
They weren't new. Yeah, they were
Yeah.
consistent.
Yeah.
And they were selling between 5,000 and 25,000 copies every time they put a CD out, right?
Wow.
So I went to New Orleans for a conference, and I bought a CD at Peaches, and I think his name was Pimp Daddy. I can't quite remember. I think it was Pimp Daddy, though.
Yeah.
And when I turned the CD over, I saw the Cash Money logo on the back, and I'm like, well, who are these guys?
Right.
So I started to ask around. I went into the projects to see if I could find them.
Really?
Bad idea.
Wow.
Bad idea.
Well, you went to Magnolia Projects?
Especially back.
Magnolia and Helio. I was like all over the place trying to find them.
You're crazy, Wendy.
I know. It really wasn't the smartest thing I've ever done. But here's the plus. You know, as a white woman going into the projects,
Yeah.
People assumed that I was either a Fed or a social worker, right? But they didn't fuck with me. I was,
Right.
you know, and here I am today. But I didn't find them. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to locate them.
Wow.
But they knew that somebody was looking for them. They knew some white lady was looking for them.
Yeah.
So there's a street team guy in Houston called Lump, excuse me. There's two guys in Houston, Hump and Lump, and I always confuse them. One was behind I'm drawing a blank on his name, oh my god. Little Flip. One was behind Little Flip, the other was the street team guy.
Oh wow.
Right? So so the street team guy, Lump, was working with Cash Money, was working with Baby and Slim. So he called me and said, hey, you're the deal lady, and these guys are looking to get a record deal. I'm like, oh, who are they? And he said, well, they're Baby and Slim, they're Cash Money. I'm like, Cash Money? Oh my god, I've been looking for them. Where have they been?
Yeah.
So when I got to speak to them, they're like, oh, you're the white lady that was looking for us. I'm like, yeah, the white lady that was looking for you.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, this was in August of 1997. At that point, we decided that I would shop them and deal, but I needed them to sell more than just 5,000 to 25,000 copies.
Yeah.
Because I knew that to get a good label deal, they would have to be selling like 75,000 to 100,000 copies of each release. And the only reason they weren't was because they were working just in New Orleans and Houston, like that whole I-10 corridor, right? That's where they were working.
So they were dropping off their own CDs at local hip-hop shops.
Yes, absolutely.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they were doing it like...
Guys, this is the term out the trunk.
Out the trunk with
Yes, out the trunk.
They had that work in the trunk.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But they were, like, fans really loved their music. Like, their whole movement was just incredible, right?
Yeah.
Myself included. And when I started working with them, I expanded their marketing area from just that I-10 corridor to the entire South. At that point in time, the attorney that was helping me shop the deal, his name is Peter Thea. Peter's firm also represented 3-6 Mafia. So we were able to put Cash Money out on tour with 3-6 Mafia throughout the Mid-South to sort of expand their territory.
Oh, wow. So Cash Money was opening up for 3-6 Mafia?
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
You never know it because there's so many artists with Cash Money, they rented a tour bus. And, you know, these guys were making indie money, so they had money. It looked like 3-6 was opening for them, even though that wasn't the case.
Right.
That's crazy.
Cash Money was pulling up in a tour bus, and 3-6 was pulling up in, you know, a little white van.
So basically, not to cut you off,
No,
because Baby said, when I was 18, I had $1 million. And
He
you
did.
basically confirming that.
when I met them, they were millionaires. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yep.
Salute
Yeah,
the
I mean,
bird.
they had the talent. Like I didn't find the talent. They already had the package.
Who was
All
the
I did
talent
was
on the label
shine-
at that time?
Shine it up.
Who was
Say
the
again?
talent at that time on the label?
BG was the biggest selling artist.
Okay.
Juvenile was there then. Wayne was there. Wayne was actually my favorite.
Yeah.
Wayne was the most lyrical back then, but he was young.
Yeah.
Their favorite was BG. They also had Magnolia Slim, who became Soulja Slim
Okay.
later.
Oh,
He was originally part of the team. A female rapper, Miss T, I think her name was.
okay.
I think she was part of the original. UNLV was part of the
So
original.
BG was the biggest selling artist. Wow.
Yes, BG had sold 25,000 CDs.
Because when we think
Yeah.
Juvenile, right?
Well, Juvenile was the biggest once they got
Of course.
to Universal.
But BG
at
was the
the time,
foundation.
When I met them,
Yeah,
you know,
BG
a year and a half before Juvenile blew up, it was BG was their biggest. Chopper City in the Ghetto was their biggest album, and he was their favorite.
Crazy.
Like they had love for BG, like I can't tell you, like it was crazy.
Yeah.
Like, he was their favorite, you know.
Wow.
And so we shopped them for 9 months. Our first offer was for Juvenile from Penalty Records. It was for $75,000 just for Juvenile.
Okay.
Wow.
And you know the value of Baby and Slim was they let me say no for 9 months. Like they got it. They understood they were making more money than they were getting offered.
Can
So
I
they
tap
knew-
into something, guys? The power of no is powerful. I
Oh
mean,
my God, yeah.
when you have when you're able to say no, that's priceless.
It is
Right.
because it showed the labels that they weren't going for the okie doke. And
Yeah.
you know, the labels weren't out on the streets like the way we were, so they didn't know how hot Cash Money was. In fact,
Yeah.
when I first, I wrote a business plan for them and I was shopping a business plan
Yeah.
because they had so many artists and they had such a great track record. Like I said, 31 releases over a 6-year period.
Yeah.
So I was shopping them with their sound scan. They didn't have radio play at the time. We were shopping the sound scan and the business plan. And when Universal first got the offer, Melda Winter called Peter Thea. Peter Thea was my attorney and their attorney.
Yeah.
Melda Winter called Peter Thea and ripped him a new asshole, like yelled at him. I remember Peter calling me saying, oh my God, I really offended this guy. I don't know why. Like, I see the value in this label, and he just thought like I was, asking for some crazy type of deal. And then right at that time, Dino DeValier, who was the A&R, had discovered Big Timers, which was the last album that we had put out.
Right.
This was in the fall of 97. And he brought it into the label. And once he brought it into the label, it showed Universal that we really did have something.
Okay.
And we started moving forward, negotiating the deal. There were a lot of labels that we were negotiating with, pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
Because these guys had such a track record. And as I was on the team, I was making sure that we sold more than 25,000 records. Like
How did you do that?
We went up to 75,000 by expanding their territory, their area.
Okay.
Instead of just working Louisiana and Texas.
Yeah.
And Jordan, the other thing that I stressed to them was they would put out a record, and Master P was also doing this. They would put out a record, work it for 6 weeks, and then drop another record and forget about the one they just put out. And in 6 weeks, you can't sell enough records. It's too short. So I had them dropping less music and focusing longer. So we were able to work the Big Timers from when we started negotiating the deal all the way through the spring.
Yeah.
And that focus, and we got up to 70,000 SoundScan CDs. Back then, when you were selling 75,000 CDs by SoundScan, you were actually probably selling closer to 125 to 150,000 because there were so many stores selling rap that weren't SoundScan stores. There were a lot of mom and pops that you were selling CDs through that weren't reporting to SoundScan, whether they didn't want people to know their sales for tax reasons or they just didn't want the expense of putting in a scanning system. There were a lot of reasons people were.
I think it was a combination of both.
I think so too. I think so too. But we sold a lot of CDs, and when the SoundScan numbers were so high, that's when the major labels were like, "Oh shit, we should be looking at this."
Yeah.
And the deal went from $1 million to $2 million to $3 million, and it ended up being an advance of $2 million per year over a 3-year period, so $6 million advance, and then a line of credit for each CD that the guys put out. It was an 80-20 split, 80% going to Cash Money, 20% to Universal. But the whole value of this deal wasn't just that it was a great split.
Yeah.
It was that these guys could put out 6 albums a year.
Yeah.
And spend Universal's money instead of their own money. They'd have to pay it back, of course. It was a line of credit, but Universal was also willing to allow them to hire outside people. So, for example, if they were putting out Juvenile and they felt that an outside person, like maybe the guy at Sony, was better at radio, they could go hire whoever they wanted. They didn't have to hire inside of the Universal building. So they were able to do whatever they wanted. They'd have to pay back the money to Universal, but Universal would fund this. And when has a major label ever said, we'll give you the money and you can go wherever the fuck you want to spend it. You don't have to spend it in-house. Yeah. And to add even more value to this deal, the guys own the masters. So if they left Universal after their 3-year deal was up, they could take all the artists with them. They could take Juvenile, they could take BG, everybody. If they went to Sony, for example, and they didn't. They stayed at Universal, but let's say they had wanted to go to another label, they could have taken everybody with them. In the music industry, you don't get to do that. And let me use
how did you get them to do that deal though? Because the music
they wanted cash money.
They wanted them that bad that they were willing to do whatever.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. You know, there's a point where you're negotiating deals and you get to an amount of money that's almost ridiculous. And then you can kind of back down on some of that money and say, you know what, instead of giving me this last, X amount of dollars, give me the masters instead. Or
that's a great negotiating technique that I never thought of. That's good, ingenious.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's not, the truth is, it's not about the money. Like, these guys were making money. Everybody needs money, right? I'm not belittling money. But when you're doing a deal, sometimes there's shit that's more important than the money, like the success, and at that point at that time in the deal, Master P, No Limit was on a decline and Cash Money was just coming up. So one of the ways that I was pitching Cash Money was they're the new No Limit. And everybody saw how successful No Limit was, and we proved by them having a 6-year track record that they weren't new to this and they weren't going away anytime soon.
Right.
And look how long they've lasted. They've been one of the longest lasting independent labels in rap music, in urban music. So it's really kind of exciting.
Yeah. Now,
like I started to say, and I'm going to use Bad Boy and MGK as an example, right?
Okay.
When Bad Boy left Interscope because Puff didn't own the masters, MGK had to stay at Interscope, and Bad Boy left and went.
Can you imagine that Puff Daddy's not getting a better deal than Cash Money? I mean, that's weird, right?
Well, he could have if he weren't all about the advances. Like, when you're an independent label, the more you get on the back end, the less you get up front, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to kind of weigh the pros and cons. And once you start getting advances, it's really hard to stop. Because if somebody's willing to hand you $1 million up front, you can use that $1 million to fund your label and do whatever. Yeah. But it's very hard to stop taking that money and say, okay, I'm just going to take it on the back end. Because when you get money on the back end, it doesn't come in big chunks. It comes in steady, small chunks.
Why didn't
I'd
you
rather have the steady small myself.
Me too. Yeah. Now, why didn't you stay with Cash Money after the deal was broken?
Why didn't I stay with them?
Yeah.
Because they forgot to pay me.
Ooh. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's in the losses category.
And there's so much on the internet right now about that I'm not going to.
We don't even have to get into that. Yeah.
But I'll tell you this: like, after they didn't pay me, I sued them, and they paid me.
She got paid.
I've been paid. I'm happy.
Yeah.
Life is good.
Yeah.
But as time has gone on, like when it first happened, I was like, oh my God, I got them a $30 million deal. Like, who doesn't pay the person that gets you such a great deal?
Since the amount is out there, you could say the amount so people can be flabbergasted.
It was a $30 million deal. I mean, when I had to prepare for court, we were 20 months in, and Cash Money had made $70 million at that point. So even though it was a $30 million deal, they were already a $100 million company.
Can you say what they defaulted you on?
Say it again?
Can you say what amount they defaulted you on, or is that out there?
No,
Okay.
I can't.
Okay.
I signed a non-disclosure.
Okay, so we'll leave it at that.
But it was a way smaller amount. It was the price of a Lamborghini.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. That's fair. It was the price of a Lamborghini.
Hey.
Okay.
But she's happy now, guys. So let's let it in the past. It's just history. It's hip hop history.
It's just hip hop history, right?
Yeah.
But at the time, I didn't understand. Like, why would they do that? And, you know, they say that time heals all wounds because as time has gone on, I've realized that they don't pay anybody. Like, they've been sued so many times for non-payment.
I mean, look what's happening with Wayne right now. I mean, who would have thought that would ever happen, you know?
Not me.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, if Wayne was signed to me and was making me all those millions, I would cut him a check butt quick. And if my contract said that I only had to pay him $1 million and I was making, you know, $50 million from him, I'd be like, dude, take 10.
I know what Rec wants to say.
I
know what Rec wants to say.
I want you to
funny you said that because Irv Gotti just said that. He said, if Wayne was my artist, I'll pay him double.
Me too. Because he was the foundation of that label. Like, he is that label.
Yeah, and he kept it alive at a certain point when it was declining.
Absolutely, he did.
Yeah.
Absolutely did. He was also always my favorite artist. Like, I always saw the benefit of Wayne. I don't know if they did or not because they were really so hype about BG. Yeah. But as a New Yorker, like somebody that really liked lyrics, the music, I think the music that Manny was making for Wayne was extraordinary. I think were a team. Yeah. And I think that Wayne was the one artist that could last without Manny. Like, he went on and excelled even without Manny as a producer.
Yeah. So you saw the second coming of Lil Wayne back then.
Yes. Wayne was like 13 and he was just incredible. He's gotten less lyrical as he's aged, but when he was 13, he was wicked with it.
Yeah. Wow.
You know, and then as he's grown, he's gotten more into the whole stream of consciousness rap, so it's a little bit different than what
he's growing up.
Yeah. Also, growing up, also drugs, you know, not to put his shit out there.
Yeah.
Been pretty open
about keep it real
and stuff.
You know what's funny about the drugs thing?
I knew him when he was young.
You know what's funny about the drugs part? Shorty Low told me before he died, I was in the car with him, I was like, yo, we were just talking about studio stuff. I was like, do you write your own music? You know? I was curious if Shorty Low wrote his own music because he was from the streets, right? And he said, yeah, I write my own music. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, but like it got worse. I wrote my biggest hits on drugs. I said, he's like, yeah. And he's like, when I stopped doing drugs, I lost that feeling. I said, do you feel like you thought that you needed the drugs to write hits? And he's like, yeah, I think it was a mental thing. And I said, damn, that's what must have happened to Wayne when he came out of jail and he couldn't do drugs like that anymore. It's a mental thing. He still got it, but it's probably a mental thing. Like, I can only write that music when I'm doing lean or this, you know? Like, I can't answer for Wayne. Only Wayne can answer for Wayne. But, you know, it's just interesting.
In fact, the only group that I can think of was Aerosmith, right? They got sober and they still wrote hit records. Like, they did better sober than they did when they were...
But they hated each other more.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess the drugs take off the edge.
Yeah. My mom always talks about Aerosmith like, screw them. You know when you know somebody when they were before, she was at a diner, I guess, up in Massachusetts, and she knew them. They used to perform for me, and, you know, screw him, you know.
That's so cool.
You know, it's just funny to hear my mom talking about that stuff.
Yeah, because she's your mom.
Yeah. It's like, Mom, were you a groupie? No, just...
That's very funny.
And then, you know, let's hope the best for Lil Wayne and Birdman. Hopefully they work it out because they were like father and son relationship.
I agree.
mean, you know.
Like, it's more than just the music. It's just, you know, as an outsider looking in, it's just really hard to watch.
It is because, like, come on, that was
really painful.
It was amazing, that bond.
I agree.
You know, and you can't get that chemistry with just anybody. You know, you meet a few people in life that have that chemistry.
And once it's gone, you can't get it back.
I wish Birdman would realize that and really just sit down and work it out, man. You guys, like, fuck money. Money comes and goes.
It's such a stupid thing to lose a relationship over.
Yeah, and you really realize that when you, like, I just lost Shorty Low, and you really realize how special someone is when they're gone. Yeah. You can't talk to them anymore. It's like...
Exactly.
Sad, man, you know?
Exactly.
So you gotta just cherish life and relationships.
I agree.
Good relationships.
Yeah.
I agree.
You know?
And we've
Gotta
lost
check
so
that.
many people in hip hop. Like it's just crazy how many people we've
Yeah.
lost.
Were you familiar with stack bundles, Wendy? I'm just curious before we get on to the next topic.
I know of stack bundles, but no, I didn't know.
Oh, okay, I did one of his only videos, and that kid was like, Rec knows, we were on the circuit at that time.
Phenomenal.
That was like going to be top 5 for real.